Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Wednesday Instagram Live broadcast. I am Jason Haas, as always. This is a little bit of a different sort of broadcast, partly because I am not outside at the winery because we've gotten 5 inches of rain in the last 12 hours. So I'm doing this from my mom's house. I'm going to give you a little tour of what it looks like outside right now. It's pretty woolly. And then share some pictures, and then we'll be inviting Brittany App, amazing photographer and videographer, to join me to talk about her soon-to-be-released new feature documentary, and lots of other stuff. So anyway, before we start, I want to take you outside, just to give you a sense of what this feels like right now, sounds like. You'll probably hear the wind whistling as we talk. But this is the stormiest winter storm that I can remember in my 19 years out here almost. It is blowing hard. It is wet. The power just went out here. Luckily, we have a generator that should keep things going. Hopefully, the internet doesn't go down. If that happens, then maybe we'll get to reschedule this for the next day. But for now, so far so good, but it's stormy out there. Blowy. We're expecting maybe as much as a foot of rain out at the vineyard. It's raining currently at about half an inch per hour, which is just mind-boggling. Okay, I am going to share some pictures of what we have going on out there. So I took these pictures yesterday. I have not driven out to the vineyard today. So what things looked like, this is kind of like the before times. Yesterday was very cold to start, frosty. A lot of people don't realize how frosty it is in Paso Robles. We get 30 or 40 frost nights a year here. It was in the low 20s when we all got out to the winery. It did get sunny, and you can see the frost starting to lift. Didn't top out very warm yesterday. It was only about the low 50s at its warmest. But we knew that this was the last kind of dry day that we were going to get. We've been working hard to get as much pruning done as we can. So you can see we've got a little more than half the vineyard pruned, really all of the late sprouting varieties. So Mourvedre, Roussanne, Counoise, those are all pruned. We're keeping the things which sprout earlier and are therefore more at risk of frost. We're keeping them unpruned. We'll prune them later, but we fully expect it to be several weeks that we won't be able to get into the vineyard after this rain. It's not just the vineyard we're pruning. We're also pruning all of our fruit trees. We've been laying down straw on the vineyard roads to keep things from eroding in what's some pretty big rain. And then we were getting ready to bottle. We're actually bottling today, tomorrow, and Friday. We have never bottled in a monsoon before, but it is, I called in, it's apparently doing pretty well. We're bottling Petalin Rosé and Dianthus. We're bottling Vermentino. We've got stacks of cases up. They're inside now, but they were outside yesterday as we were making room. Our animals are hanging out. I love this picture. This is them hanging out next to the solar panels. They're moving around. I'm sure they're very wet right now, but you can only do what you can do. And then one last picture that I wanted to share, just of the clouds as I was leaving last night, which I think gives you a sense of what things look like. I mean, this is a big storm, and it's just sitting there. It's an atmospheric river. It's just sitting there. Dumping rain on us. So I've been updating on Twitter every couple of hours. And it's cool. We need the rain super badly. The one other big thing that I should mention before I invite Brittany is that we just got the okay this week to reopen our tasting room, which is something that we've been hoping for. It's been closed since the beginning of December, so we'll be opening a week from yesterday, so next Tuesday. Back to the normal sorts of tasting we were doing all of last summer and fall, so outdoor seated tastings by reservation, well distanced, We feel really good about the experience we can give people and also how we can keep people safe. So if you are interested in one of those or interested in coming out for, or not having us come to you for a virtual tasting, we got details about both of those on our website. So with no further ado, let me invite Brittany. And it's waiting for her. Hopefully her internet is still up too. It's connecting. Good sign. Hey!
Hey!
How are you, friend?
Look at that. Look at your face.
How are things where you are? Is it super wet, super windy?
It's not super wet, Jason. I'm jealous of everyone else who's super rained on right now. I think it's coming, but mostly I've just had howling winds since late last night. So it just started raining actually as you hopped on live, which I think is fantastic because we were joking about this being our rain dance. So yeah, the rain will come, but I don't have 4 inches to brag about yet like you do. So.
Whew. Yeah, I'm trying to decide whether I'm brave enough to try to drive out to the vineyard this afternoon and get some pictures.
Yeah.
I heard that Vineyard Drive is closed right now because of trees down, but Adelaida is still open.
Yeah.
Who knows how long that will last, but
Right.
Crazy. Cool. It's crazy.
Well, do you have? I mean, could you toss that to one of the folks that's already at the winery? Like, hey, you want to hop out in the mud and snap some photos for me while you're bottling during a monsoon?
I have actually made that request, and I gotta. Well, we'll see what we can do. Kind of response. So, yeah, I'm sure that Chelsea or Austin or Amanda or somebody will get some pictures out there, but
good.
It's nothing like seeing it with my own eyes.
That's true. That's true. I agree. I mean, you are quite the photo man, so it's hard not to be out doing the photo thing when you're a photo person.
spoken with experience.
Right. We had snow on the Tembler range, not last night, but the sunset before, and it was just stunning. Like, I've seen some beautiful sunsets since I moved out here, but that might have been the one that is the winner so far. It was just incredible.
Whoa. That must have been beautiful.
It's amazing. Yeah, because I'm out on the Carrizo, for those who don't know, and on the east side of the plains is the Tembler Mountains, which is where the San Andreas Fault runs right at the base. And then on the west side is the Calientes, which most of them are not as tall, but Caliente Peak is actually the tallest peak in SLO County. So snow will land up there, but as far as the view for me, it's all about the Temblers because they'll just end up they were covered in snow. It didn't last long, but you know, for that evening, it was beautiful.
That's incredible. I always kind of treasure the times when you get the snow on the Santa Lucias and you can drive through them. I love the drive up the Salinas Valley when there's snow on both sides. I feel like that happens sort of once every year.
Right.
That drive up and there's snow on both sides. And I'm like, this is unbelievable.
Right. Well, and it's crazy up in Santa Cruz area right now, I think, and Sonoma, and everybody's welcome to our new world, Jason. What is this weird weather?
It's so Californian. It's so Californian of us both to be like, man, we're having weather. We've got to talk to people about it.
There's seasons.
Cool. So talk to people a little bit about your background. How did you grow up to be doing photography and videography?
Oh. I grew up in Los Osos. I went to Morro Bay High School, and that was when my first, I guess that wasn't my first interest in photography, but that was the first time I got to, take a class about it and learn a thing about it. And I lucked out because my photography teacher at Morro Bay High School, to this day, remains one of my favorite teachers of all time. And anyone who joined me and had Mr. Behrman as a teacher will agree to his epic amounts of cool. So that was it. I had always kind of had a camera around, and then in high school I got to pursue it as an elective course with a teacher who I loved. And then I knew I wanted to be my own boss and run my own business, and I knew I wanted to do something creative, but I hadn't quite, figured out how does that work and what does that look like. And I remember just stressing out about it, college aged, and my stepmom one day said to me, "Brittany, darling, the camera, the camera that's always in your hand, that thing, people make money with that. That's it was one of those, like, it was such a part of me I hadn't even considered that it could be a thing that I could turn into a career. And so from there, I just kind of went for it, and started with shooting weddings and portraits, and then did that with the end goal of a broader reach with my photography, being able to do editorial work and storytelling and work for nonprofits and work in the agriculture and environmental sphere, and be more of a commercial photographer and kind of storyteller. And then that's what then led into the filmmaking, was the storyteller piece of it. But this is my first ever feature-length film, so I can't pretend to be an expert, Jason, because I'm not. But it's been an amazing journey, and has been life-changing in a lot of really wonderful ways. So yeah. Did that answer the question in a kind of sort of Cliff Notes sort of way?
Very much. Yeah.
Cool.
So to what extent was wine a part of your life growing up? I mean, I know, like, I've seen your parents out at Tablas Creek, and they're fans and they're awesome. Was wine a thing in your life and on dinner tables as you were growing up?
Ironically, not really. Not really. Like, I can't claim even to be I cannot claim to be a knowledgeable wine person myself. My parents, however, who you've seen in your tasting room, yes, absolutely. And my brother and his wife, like, a lot of my family knows a lot about wine. And so the knowledge and awareness and appreciation that I have as an adult has come from their passions as adults. But growing up, it wasn't a thing. I mean, it was there, but it wasn't ever a thing, Yeah. Someone would have a glass of wine, but it wasn't like a big part of my life. So it's been fun to learn more. I've learned more about wine through making this film about water, ironically, than I had before. So that's been really cool. That's been a treat.
So let's talk about the film. So the film is called Where There Once Was Water.
Yes.
What was the genesis of it? How did it start?
In 2008. Let's go way back. Let's just go for it. In 2008, I got to sail around the world with Semester at Sea, which is a study abroad program on a ship full of, like, hundreds of undergrads. And long story short, it was the first time I sailed as the shipboard photographer, and that experience was the first time I had ever seen what life looks like without access to clean water. And it was heartbreaking. And after that circumnavigation of the globe, where lives look very differently than they do here, I just felt this charge to do something about it and to try and help in whatever way I could with, making clean water accessible to women in the world. And typically the responsibility falls on the women. So as a woman, I felt even more called to that. So the first thing I did was ride a bicycle all the way across the United States of America, which was a very long bike ride. And we did that to raise money for a nonprofit called Water Aid. The bike trip took 3 months. We ended up raising $15,000 for that nonprofit. And that kind of started this journey for me around water activism. And then in 2014, when the drought was getting really intense here in California, I thought, well, what can I do now? What can be the next thing? And there seemed to be a real disconnect between the problems we were facing here in California and the behaviors I was seeing from most people, throughout their day. And so I thought, well, I'll start taking pictures of all of our lakes and reservoirs and things that are just not lakes anymore. Just dried and crackly and empty. And then at some point in that photography project, I realized I had no idea how I was going to photograph disappearing groundwater, and that perhaps we would need to talk about that. And then, oh gosh, if we're talking about it, then maybe this needs to be a film. And so then there was a Kickstarter, and here we are.
Yeah, it's.
I don't know.
There's only so much you can
answer that question.
There's only so much story you can tell with pictures of dry lake beds. I mean, it's a.
Correct.
It's a
and
piece.
It's not a very hopeful story. It's
right.
Not very hopeful.
So you started this project kind of seriously when we were in the middle of that drought, and it lasted. It lasted really through 16. And since then, we've kind of ricocheted back and forth between really quite wet winters and quite dry winters. We've gone sort of dry, wet the last 4 years. How much has the film evolved from what it originally was when you started thinking about it to what it is now as it's in its final stage?
Gosh, that's a really great question. And it's like an entirely different being than it was when I started. And because I also didn't know really what film I was making. I just knew I had to somehow try to tell the story of water. And so I thought, oh, I could interview this person, and I could interview that person, and I could talk to these people, and I could go here, and I could do that. And again, my sensible stepmother was like, you're going to need to reel it in a little bit, darling. It's like 40 movies. And so I reeled it in a little bit, but I still cast my net far too wide. But by doing so, I did have more pain and tears when I was cutting people from the film and, leaving them on the cutting room floor. But also was able to really hone this down into, I think, the story that it was always meant to be, that I didn't even know it from the beginning. But this is a really hopeful film, and it's a very holistic film about water. And the way I like to describe it is that it's a song. It's like a rain dance. It's like a song for the sacred in all of us. You and me, we are both mostly water. As I sit here talking to you, I look like a human being, but I am 70% water, so long as I'm well hydrated. So yeah, it has become this really beautiful and hopeful story about the choices we all get to make every day, and how those contribute to the story we want to tell about water and about life on this planet in general.
Do you think? I know when people ask, and I get these questions a lot when I'm talking to groups, asking me about what I think the impact of climate change is likely to be on our own work at Tablas Creek. And my response is usually, well, I feel like it's not going to be the added heat that's going to be the big issue for us. It's going to be the fact that most of the projections show that it's likely to be somewhere between somewhat drier and significantly drier in the next 50 years, next century, as the climate warms. The movie is hopeful. Do you feel optimistic about the ability of Californians and humans and Americans to make the changes that are going to be necessary for us to have a more sustainable future?
I think it depends on the day, Jason. I think my answer.
Given everything that we've lived through in the last 3 weeks, that feels like
Yeah.
a very, very appropriate answer.
The movie is a movie, so it gets to be a thing and always be hopeful. But as a human, sometimes, yes, I feel very hopeful because I know that the solutions exist. It's a matter of whether or not we are willing to make the changes and make the mistakes and try the new things and genuinely like write a new story for ourselves. Are we willing to do that? And that is the question. And some folks are always, yes, what can we do? And some folks don't even want to have the conversation. So collectively, I hope so. You know, I am an eternal optimist. There's pros and cons to everything. So that included, I want to believe that we can do this and that we can make the hard decisions and, like I said, make a bunch of mistakes along the way, but start to put into practice a lot of these things that, like, we already know they work. We already know, for example, that having a beaver in a river improves everything about that ecosystem. So what can we do as humans to help the beavers do what they already do? That's just one little example. And you guys at Tablas Creek, I mean, you are like leading the way. And I'm bragging on you all the time, because how can we enjoy really good wine and also restore watersheds, build soil, get carbon out of the air and put it back into the earth? All of these things, it can all be done, right? But it takes practice, and it takes those who are practicing sharing the knowledge. And that's another thing that you guys are really, really just getting all the gold stars about, because you're practicing it and you're sharing what you're learning. And that's a big piece, I think, of the puzzle moving forward, is learning and sharing and learning and sharing. And so, yes, I will say that I'm hopeful most of the time.
That's pretty good.
Most of the time, most days.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're past the proof of concept stage for a lot of this. I think there's enough people showing that these things work, they're viable, and it's just a question of whether or not we can get the incentives in the right places to have enough people adopt the practices that need to be adopted.
Yeah.
And I'm like you, there's days where I'm like, we've got this. And then there's days where I'm like, it's never going to happen.
Right.
Right. Yeah, it's that was one of the things that I really loved in the early cut of the movie that I saw, is that I felt like you could have told the story in a way that was super depressing, and instead I came out feeling like inspired to
cool.
that we were not alone in this fight. There were other people doing all of this brilliant and innovative stuff that together had the chance to really transform the way that we all relate with water. And that's, I think that's important.
Thank you. Hey, if you felt that way, then that's a good sign.
Yes. Again, it goes by the day. There's days where I feel like we're on the right track, and then there's days where, like, I know we can see the track, but I'm just worried that not enough people are going to be on it to make a difference. Yeah,
that's a thing. That's a real thing.
So I know that you have some big announcements coming later this week.
Tomorrow.
So exciting. So not asking you to spill the announcement early, but how overall, what's your model for how the movie is going to get out, how people are going to get a chance to see it? So
it will at first be premiering at film festivals. And what I will be announcing tomorrow is the world premiere, which is a festival that is outside of the US. And then I will be also announcing the US premiere, which is a festival in the US. Go figure. The those are both coming up really soon. So that will happen. The actual festivals, without, giving away all the info, are like late February to mid-March is kind of the window when those premieres will happen. So people will be able to see this film very soon through a, thank you COVID, virtual film festival platform. So again, pros and cons, right? Like, obviously it's a bummer we can't be getting together for film festivals, but perhaps the upside to that is it's accessible to more people in more places, because you can attend a festival without having to go to that city. And this is another part of the world I'm still learning all about, but when you are premiering at film festivals, there are things you can and cannot do as far as screenings that are outside of the film festival circuit. So I will eventually be hosting, hopefully, some local independent screenings and screenings all over. So if folks are interested in hosting a screening of this film, please do reach out to me and we can be in communication about how to make that happen and when that can happen. But for the first few months, this will be premiering at film festivals, mostly in the United States. And the best way to stay up on all of that is on my website, because I'm going to keep a list of where is it screening, when is it screening, how do I get tickets, how do I see it, all of that jazz. So, and then eventually I most likely will also have it available on my website as just a real easy, rent the movie and watch it at home kind of a thing. But I cannot do that until after the film festival run as well. So,
okay,
rules.
So tell
rules,
people,
Jason.
Tell people your website so that they know what that is, where they can find it.
The website is the name of the film, Where There Once Was Water.com.
Easy enough.
It's easy to get those words mixed up too. People are like, where once there was water, or where there was once water? Where there once was water.com.
Your comment on the pluses and minuses of events during the times of COVID is an interesting one. I just finished a symposium that was a benefit for Free the Grapes, which is a nonprofit that helps open up essentially access to markets for wineries to send wine to. And the symposium normally is held up in the East Bay somewhere, and it's a 2.5 day conference, and typically costs like $750 to attend, and we get about 500 people come, and it's a big fundraiser for Free the Grapes, and there's all this great information.
Yeah.
Obviously, that didn't happen this year.
Right.
We did a virtual conference that we spread out over 4 days, and we had like 900 people sign up to be a part of it. And so many more people from outside of California could actually attend and get this information. Whereas, is somebody going to fly out from Virginia for this conference, or fly from the Finger Lakes in New York? No, probably not. I mean, a few will do it, but having, there's things that you lose by not having everybody there in one place, and that kind of creative energy that you get in an environment with all these people. But at the same time, the ability to open things up to people regardless of location is super powerful.
Yeah. And it's a smaller footprint in a big way, right? If we're not all flying all over the world to attend a thing, we are giving our planet a nice opportunity to breathe, which she appreciates, I think.
I'm sure she does. There was all of this information about during the intense months in the spring where most of the world was shut down. I mean, CO2 emissions were off by like a significant amount.
Yeah. I just had a conversation with one of the women who puts on the Global Freshwater Summit, which is coming in April. And she was bringing up that, that March, April time period where we all first went into lockdown, and saying what a powerful pause that was. And if we were all able to recognize that just by pausing, we can help our planet and our climate and all of these problems in a big way. We don't need a bunch of money. We don't need a bunch of crazy technology. We just need to like slow down and take a look at how we're living on this planet. And I mean, that's powerful, right? Just hey, instead of flying here, there, and here, and there, and here, and there, can we hop on Zoom and get a lot of the same benefits?
Yep.
We can, and we have to right now, but going forward, maybe, you know, maybe this is a way for us to learn how to shrink our footprint in ways we wouldn't have otherwise thought to without being forced to. We probably wouldn't have innovated in this way. So
I totally agree. I mean, even something as simple as you think of all of the companies that are saying, you know, even when we can go back, we're not going to require everyone to come into the office every day. Like maybe there's a day or two a week where we make sure that everyone's there for meetings to get people together, but people want to continue to work from home. There's actually tons of benefits from that. You think of all of the time that people lose commuting, all of the pollution that there is, all of the things that does to drive up real estate prices because people have to be in a very specific spot in order to work. I mean, there's all of these things that I do think people have realized over the last year that are going to have some major lasting benefits. It's not that people will go back to pre-COVID way of doing everything as soon as whatever everyone has a vaccine or whatever the end point of this will look like.
right.
So if there were 2 or 3 things that you felt like were take-home lessons, things that people can do to reduce their consumption of water, reduce their footprint in this world from having put this movie together, what would they be? What's the low-hanging fruit, do you think, for people?
The low-hanging fruit, gosh. I mean, 70% of our fresh water is used to grow food. That's gigantic. And we all eat and drink, and we all do that 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 times a day. We're all different, right? Respect. Most of us do that 3 times a day. We get to choose what we're eating. So it is a big deal if you're going to buy a bottle of wine, to buy a bottle of wine from someone like Tablas Creek, who's restoring watersheds while making wine. And if you're going to buy beef, buy that from someone who's doing holistic planned grazing or regenerative agriculture or biodynamics, because then you're eating beef and you're restoring the water cycle and you're building soil, and living soil holds water. And if you're gonna go buy fresh food, go to the farmer's market and support any of the local farmers, because that food has not had to travel by train and plane and boat and car thousands of miles to get to the grocery store. And so you're reducing your carbon footprint by purchasing food locally. And then a step further is the local organic farmers, and a step beyond that is the local biodynamic farmers. I think that's, ironically, the low-hanging fruit is the fruit, right? And the vegetables and the meat and the wine. And like, there are so many of us on this planet. We eat and drink and consume. That is what we do. And instead of just being consumers, we can be a more reciprocal part of the equation by being more conscious of what we are consuming. And then I think also just like get to know your watershed, find out what watershed you live in is a good step. Because if you don't know, then you don't know and you don't care. And how can you have a relationship with the thing if you don't even know the thing? And your watershed, in a sense, is like your lifeboat. So everybody in your watershed is all in it together. So if we're in the Salinas watershed, all of us in the Salinas River watershed are all in this lifeboat together. And every decision we make in the watershed is going to affect everyone else in the whole watershed. So there's a couple of things.
Awesome. Yeah, I love
also beavers are awesome. And we've got beavers in the Salinas River in Atascadero, and they're just great. Sorry, my battery is telling me I'm low on battery now, Jason. Sheesh.
That's probably a sign. We are at the hour, which is
I've got 20% left. I had to use cell signal actually because my Wi-Fi was going cuckoo. So
yeah, about 10 minutes before we were supposed to go live, the power went out here. So
perfect.
This is why I'm sitting in the dark, except for the window behind me. Yeah.
Oh.
Again, weather.
Right. I know. Weather.
It's new for us.
Right. Winter. It's like we're getting our entire winter today and tomorrow.
In fact, we at Tablas, we're expecting to get something like 40% of the rain that we're going to get all winter today and tomorrow.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's wild. And see, you've probably got your soil ready. You got your ground all happy and spongy and ready to soak all of that up. So it's not going to just drain off everywhere.
We do what we can. I mean, ideally, we would have had several rainstorms, smaller rainstorms before this, earlier in the winter, to get the grass really growing. We really haven't. It's been so dry.
It's so dry.
I mean, the water is, the ground is super absorbent anyway, but it's a lot to ask of it to get whatever we're going to get, 8 inches, 10 inches, a foot of rain, and in 48 hours. That is
a lot.
That
is a lot.
It is. But hey, we'll take it. Like you don't get to choose this. So if it's a question of getting a little more water than maybe would be ideal, or not enough water, I'll take the little extra water. So it'll be useful somewhere downstream at least.
Absolutely.
Cool. Okay, so people who don't already follow you, what's the best way for them to follow you on? We already told your website, but on social media, what's the handles?
I spend a lot of time hanging out on Instagram, and you want to just look for my name, Brittany App, Brittany App. Like there's an app for everything. That is my real last name. So yeah, Instagram is a fun place. I do have a Facebook page for the film, Where There Once Was Water. And I'm on Twitter. I'm kind of spazzy on Twitter, but you can hang out there with me if you'd like. That's also my name, Brittany App. Yeah, the website and Instagram are probably the best places.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for taking some time out of your Wednesday to talk to me. I cannot wait to hear when and where I get to watch the final movie. And I'm sure I will talk to you soon. Okay.
Thank you
so much,
Brittany. Jason. This has been so fun.
You're so welcome. Okay. So just again, last couple messages for those of you who watched. Thank you for joining. I'll be on in 2 more weeks. Don't have the next guest quite confirmed yet, but I have a couple of really exciting prospects. So again, every 2 weeks, make sure you join us on Facebook Live on Fridays on the weeks where I do not do this. So not this week, but next week, where our winemaker Neil Collins does a live tasting and discussion with another winemaker. And then again, our big news is that we've gotten the okay, since we are out of the California stay-home order for the moment, to reopen our tasting room outside. So next Tuesday, we're accepting appointments already on our website, and we can't wait to start seeing you all again. So again, thank you so much. We will do this again in 2 weeks, and thanks again to Brittany.